All right, number three. During a weekly walkthrough of the construction site, the architect sees that the painters are using the wrong color in the master bedroom. The architect should A. Write a letter to the owner, B. Tell the painter to stop, C. Inform the GC that there is a discrepancy, D. Write a change order to correct the problem. So again, there's a couple in here that may be correct answers if you had more information. For example, D, if we had more of the timeline and we knew more about what was going on, it is quite possible that either you or the GC, as the architect, you or the GC, would create a change order. But we don't have enough information yet, and we don't even know whether we actually do need to do the change order. So it's not D. How about write a letter to the owner? Well, I mean, that's certainly an okay answer. That's a solid answer. It's not the best answer, though. And the reason it's not the best answer is that there's actually action happening on the site. And things are going forward, and like a written letter to the owner, who knows how long that would take to sort of play out. And so it's just not a really good answer. So I'm going to call that wrong, even though it's kind of correct. How about B, tell the painter to stop? In almost, unless the contract is for design build, or you have a specific contract where the architect is being consciously given control over means and methods, and therefore also being compensated for having that control over means and methods, you never ever walk onto a job site and say stop to any of the subs of the general contractor. If they're your subs, feel free to say stop. That's one of your jobs, is to control the flow of information and the work that's happening. But if they are not your subs, it is not your job. And interestingly, by telling them to stop in that situation, you could potentially take on a great deal of potential liability down the road. If, for example, the building comes in, 4 weeks late, and there are penalties for the general contractor for each week that they're late, they are very likely to write a letter that says, well, the architect came through 7 weeks ago or 12 weeks ago and told the painters to stop, and therefore took over control of the schedule. So from a legal standpoint, the danger of saying stop to the painters is that you are literally absorbing the schedule responsibility by doing that. Now, it can be a little complicated. It depends on if it was being handled through litigation or something, if problems went into a deep situation like that. It's not necessarily true that every judge would follow that kind of thinking, but it's true enough that that's how the contracts are written, and that's how the sort of expectation of conduct. The painters are part of the GC's world. The mechanical engineer and the structural engineer and those folks are part of the architect's world. They don't tell the structural engineer to stop, and you don't tell the painter or the plumber or the electrician to stop. However, you do inform the GC that there is a discrepancy. And there's another reason for this, and that I just want to make sure, because you could imagine a slightly more complicated question that could lead you to a couple of different ways of thinking about this. One of the reasons why C is so accurate, especially in something like the paint color in a master bedroom, and this is, I always use this example because this actually happened to me, where I chose a color, and the client was like, "Oh yeah, that's great, Mike. Thanks very much. Love the color." And then clearly turned around and said to the general contractor, "Whatever you do, don't put that, buttercup yellow or whatever the heck it was, into the master bedroom. Use this robin egg blue instead." And they're the owner. They get to say that. That's fine. So when I go onto the job site and I say, "Hey, this is the wrong paint color," it may be that the GC actually has newer or more useful information. Or it may be that the only way to get that color is to put on a certain coat first and then a second coat later that's a different color to give you the full spectrum. Or like, you just don't necessarily know. That's one of the reasons why you don't just say stop, because the painters, if you say stop, the painters are going to stop and go off the job site and go to another project of theirs, and maybe you can't get them back for 2 weeks, right? So you can, just by saying stop, you can actually really mess up a schedule, because of course other people can't do what they need to do until the painters have finished. So the whole point here, and this is one of those things that you're going to find over and over again on questions from NCARB, is that you're following the sort of logical set of relationships. You're following the contracts and you're following the regular connections. So there's a problem on the job site, you talk to the GC, you have a conversation about it. If it turns out there's more information, then great. If it doesn't, and they truly are painting the wrong color, then you might get into a situation where you say, well, wait, this isn't going to meet the requirements of the contract documents. Once this project is finished, paint color will be the wrong color, so we need to stop this process. And then you're saying that to the GC has their response. So you're having it as a discussion with everybody representing their agendas and their appropriate contractual responsibilities. The only reason that a change order would get written is if you had spec'd one thing and they had painted that, and then it turned out everybody wanted to change it and we had to go to something different, and it cost more or cost less or was going to take longer, and so therefore the contract between the owner and the GC needed to be changed. And we just don't have enough information here to think that that might be the case. So inform the GC that there is a discrepancy. It's almost always these questions are going to be about having a reasonable conversation with the appropriate other players.